So 5.8 deals with applying special right triangles. What do we know about right triangles?
They equal 90 degrees.
They have an angle that is 90 degrees, so they have a right angle. What do we know about the other two angles? They add up to 90. So if we have one angle that's 45, then what will the other angle have to be? 45. So if we have two angles that are 45, what type of triangle is this?
A right triangle.
Well, it's a right triangle. Isosceles. Okay, so first we have the 45, 45, 90 triangle theorem. So in a 45, 45, 90 triangle, both legs are congruent and the length of the hypotenuse is the length of the leg times square root 2. So the legs are going to equal L and the hypotenuse will equal L times root 2. So this is extremely important. That whatever the legs are, the hypotenuse is going to equal that times square root 2. We're going to do some examples. So find the value of x, give your answer in simplest radical form. So what do we have as the length of our leg?
8.
So our leg is 8. So then what's our hypotenuse going to equal? 8 times square root 2. So it's equal to the leg times square root 2. That's it. Why, Nicole asks? Because, no, it actually makes sense. So we have a right triangle, so we can do the Pythagorean theorem. So, all right, we said 8 root 2 was the length of x. What is our other, what's our other leg? 8. So what's our a and b here?
8 and 8.
8 and 8. So we have 8 squared plus 8 squared is equal to c squared, which is 8 root 2 squared. So what's 8 squared? 64 plus 64 is equal to 8 root 2 squared. So this would be 128. So 64 times 2, 128. What's 64 plus 64? 128. So that's why. This is to explain why this works. So you don't have to do any of this math. This was just to explain why. Let's look at it. Oops. Cool.
So we don't need the Pythagorean theorem?
No.
So then
So find the value of x. Give your answer in simplest radical form. So now we have, what's the length of our leg?
10 square root 2.
10 square root 2. So what is our hypotenuse in relationship to the leg? What's the formula for hypotenuse? The hypotenuse that we did on slide 2. Go back to slide 2. What's our hypotenuse equal to?
AD equals
AC
squared
BC equals
oh
length.
no.
The hypotenuse is the length of the leg times square root 2.
Oh, so you square that?
So this is what our length of a leg is. So we plug that in. So we have x is equal to 10 times square root 2 times square root 2.
So wouldn't it just be 20 because 2 into
So x is equal to 20.
What?
Because
How did you get 20?
square root 2 times square root 2 is 2. Well, it would be square root 4, and square root 4 is 2.
Yeah.
So because they're usually the same, they go into what we did before.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was like 2 3s, it would be 30.
Right. Any questions on this?
No.
Next example. Find the value of x, give your answer in simplest radical form. So now we have that 5 is our hypotenuse. So 5 is equal to the length times square root 2. What is the length of our leg we have here? X. So let's plug x in for L. So 5 is equal to x times square root 2. How do we get x all by itself?
Traction.
No, you move the square root to
How do we move the square root 2 on the other side? Divide. It's being multiplied right now, so we need to divide everything by square root 2. So 5 over square root 2 is equal to x. That's the answer.
You don't have to simplify? I don't get this at all.
Yeah,
I'm failing
I don't get
This one, I got the other ones, but this
I
one.
don't get the
Is there-
other.
So is that the simplest form? Or the simplest-
Well,
simplest you can have?
you're not supposed to have square roots on the bottom of your denominator, but we're going to worry about that on Thursday. Okay?
What's this
We're
one?
going to simplify those on
What's this
Thursday.
one gonna be?
The next test is next Wednesday.
Oh.
And this is the last section we're learning. 5.8 is the last day.
Okay.
Oh, this one.
Ever?
Uh-huh.
Like today.
And then what? And then what?
Whatever.
Wait,
All right, next example. Find the length of x. Give your answer in simplest radical form. So what's the length of our leg that we have now?
24.
12. The length of one leg. That's all we need.
Wait, it looks like 12 is half of that leg. I guess. Never mind.
So we have two legs of a triangle. This is one leg, this is the other, and then the third side, the longest one, is the hypotenuse. Okay?
I was just being stupid.
I thought
So now we're looking for the hypotenuse. So what do we need to do?
You add
you do 12.
12 times 12 and then 12 times 12. Is it-
You 12 square root.
Did
No,
you
it's
square
x
12?
square root 2.
So it's x square root 2. So it's the length of the leg
So 12.
times square root 2. So we have x is equal to 12 square root 2.
Oh,
And
why don't we
that's
just
the
use
answer, like the easy thing.
Pythagorean?
What would be easier, the Pythagorean theorem or this?
The
All you need to do is if it's a 45, 45, 90 triangle and the leg is 12, you automatically, without doing any math, you know that the hypotenuse is 12 times square root 2.
So do we just leave it there?
That's the answer. That's simplest form.
Okay, so I thought the length was the hypotenuse, like the L.
The L is the leg.
Okay, so L. Okay.
So find the value of x, give your answer in simplest radical form. Find
Oh my goodness.
A and B.
Wait, wouldn't B be 2?
What's B?
2.
2.
Okay. So then it'd be 2.
2 square root 2.
That's it?
That's it.
Seems a little too easy.
It's really not.
Really?
Really.
It's gonna be harder.
No, it's not hard. Find the value of x, give your answer in simplest radical form. So now it gives us the hypotenuse, which is 16. So the hypotenuse is equal to the length of the leg times square root 2. What's our length of the leg that we have? X. So 16 is equal to x times square root 2. How do we get x all by itself?
Oh.
Divide by square root 2.
So you can't.
Divide 16 has a square root. So does that not mean anything? Because square root of 16 is 4. Or are we not doing that?
We're not doing that.
Okay, never mind.
So if it's in the fractions and I simplify it, we can do
We're going to simplify fractions on Thursday.
Okay.
But for now, we're just going to leave it like this. Okay, so now we're going to do the guided practice problems in the book. So find the value of x for number 1. What's the length of our leg?
14.
So what's the length of our hypotenuse going to be?
Square root of 14.
14 square root.
14 square root 2. So we take the length of the leg times square root 2. Number 2, it gives us the hypotenuse. Casey.
It would be 12 over square root 2.
So it'd be 12 over square root 2. So we have 12 is equal to x times square root 2, and then we just divide both sides by square root 2. Number 3.
It'd be 9 square root 2 over square root 2. But would
They
they just
cancel for
cancel?
9.
They cancel out?
They cancel.
So it would just be 9.
9. All right, and last one, number 4.
Wait, remember the second square root from again?
So when we're going from the hypotenuse back to the leg, we divide by square root 2.
Okay.
So 9 square root 2 over square root 2, then square root 2's cancel out. So number 4, the two arms of the railroad sign are perpendicular bisectors of each other. In Pennsylvania, the lengths marked in red must be 19.5 inches. What is the distance labeled D round to the nearest tenth of an inch? So let's look at our picture. What are the legs of the triangle we have? 19.5. So if it gives us the length of the leg is 19.5, what would our hypotenuse be? 19.5 times square root 2. Now we don't have a calculator, so we can't find it to the nearest tenth, but we can just leave it like this.